What if I told you guys that the secret to getting the next great Steelers defense has been inside the Steelers building this entire time? Well, this certainly could be the case, especially if the Steelers hire one specific head coaching candidate. But before we get into today's discussion, the search is officially on for the next head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, guys. And we're getting you daily and free updates on that search every time we get new interview requests, every time we get new news on the next search for the Pittsburgh Steelers head man. We're going to be getting you guys free and daily updates. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already to join the already 110,000 strong already subscribed here on Steelers Talk. Now we'll start today's story here. Back in 2022, where Brian Flores, recently fired by the Miami Dolphins and recently filed lawsuit against the National Football League for their hiring practices, got hired by head coach then Mike Tomlin, and of course it was approved by owner Art Rooney II to be hired as the linebackers coach here in Pittsburgh. And while Flores was here, he found something schematically inside the Steelers building that completely blew his mind, and he had never encountered anywhere else, whether it be in Miami, whether it be in New England, or anywhere else in football. And it completely changed the course of his career, and if he gets hired as the next head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, could completely change the course of the Pittsburgh Steelers defense moving forward. And if you guys didn't know, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Pitt Panthers actually share the same training facility there in Southside Pittsburgh. And while, Flores was getting to know everybody in the building, he became good friends with the linebackers coach for the Pitt Panthers, Tiquan Underwood. And of course, Underwood was somebody that was coaching linebackers and was coaching head coach Pat Narduzzi's defensive scheme. And it was while working with Underwood that Brian Flores became aware of Pat Narduzzi defense. And if you guys have ever watched Pitt Panther football, you guys understand that Narduzzi does some crazy shit on the defensive side of the ball, and he has for a very long time. And a lot of the stuff that Narduzzi has been doing with the Pitt Panther defense has been kind of, tossed to the side by NFL minds, saying, oh, that's just college stuff, that's kiddie stuff. But Brian Flores saw the stuff that Narduzzi was doing and said, you know what, how do I translate this to an NFL defense to give me a competitive edge? And the best way I can describe it, guys, is that most NFL fire zones is what called zone pressures are with 3 deep defenders and 3 underneath defenders. Okay, the Pittsburgh Steelers are well known for their 3 deep fire zones from the Dick LeBeau era. The Steelers even utilized fire zones over the last several years under Mike Tomlin and Terrell Austin. This is something that most NFL defenses run, and even to this day, 3x3 fire zones are the most predominantly used zone pressures in the National Football League. But what Pat Narduzzi likes to run is 2 and 4 deep zone match pressures, okay? And essentially what he does is he runs either quarters or palms in those triangles, 3x3, especially when the offense is in 2x2 formation, so that's 2 eligible receivers on each side of the field. And the reason why Narduzzi does this, and kind of the thinking behind, kind of pairing these zone match concepts with extra pressure, is that you can utilize, the man match and the pattern matching stuff that Nick Saban popularized over the last several years, both in professional and college football, while also getting extra pressure on the opposing quarterback. Because if you just play regular palms, or if you just play regular quarters, and you just do regular pattern match, it's just with a 4-man pass rush. But Narduzzi was like, well, what if we, found a way to blitz and also use these principles? And now we can take a look here at kind of an explanation of what this looks like here. And by the way, all these photos come from Thinking Football's video on Brian Flores' defense. I highly recommend that video if you haven't checked it out already, but I think he did a really good job mapping out what these are. And essentially what it is, when you get a 2x2 formation, okay, so when you get 2 eligibles on each side there, what Brian Flores and what Pat Narduzzi has done for years is essentially it's 2 triangles of coverage. And what those triangles do is that they pattern match. So essentially, there's rules as to when and where each wide receiver breaks in the pattern in the pattern of the route, and then the DB will have rules as to which one they're supposed to attach to in man coverage, given what the offense is running. But what Brian Flores does, what Pat Narduzzi has been doing for many years now, is instead of just doing a 4-man pressure look there, you're getting 5 men in there, and you're inserting a linebacker to attack the quarterback. So it kind of combines that pattern matching stuff that you see at the highest levels of football, while also getting pressure pressure on the opposing quarterback. Now, you might notice there's a pretty big hole in the middle of the defense, so if a running back just runs right up the middle and you even dump it off quickly to him, there's going to be a little bit of a hole there. But usually when you send 5 men or 6 men towards the quarterback, the running back has to stay in and protect the quarterback anyway, so that kind of limits that area of the field and that weakness in this defense. And what's really cool about these 2 triangles, guys, is that you can play different types of zone match here, okay? There's quarters, there's palms, and nothing's stopping you from playing palms in one triangle or quarters in the other triangle. So with this pressure look, with the 5 men attacking the quarterback, they can get to the quarterback quicker, and then the quarterback needs to figure out, okay, are they playing palms or are they playing quarters here? And if they get it wrong, they could throw an interception. So quarterbacks tend to be very hesitant to throw into the flats and get the ball out quickly against this defense. And also because you get that too high safety shell, you have great leverage and it prevents big plays down the field. Now you might be saying, but Jack, what happens in trips formations? If you don't know what trips formations are, it's when there's 3 eligible receivers to one side of the field. Well, what Flores likes to do in Minnesota is that he'll play either quarters or palms with the box formation there and box coverage to one side. He'll have, once again, a too high safety structure with the other safety poaching is what it's called. He's kind of looking for crossers that are coming to the other side of the field, and he's taking anything that comes across the field. And then over here, you've got your number 1 man corner being locked in, man on man. It's called MEG coverage. MEG stands for man everywhere he goes. So that's why you need a really good man-to-man corner in this style of defense if you want to play modern NFL defense. And by the way, guys, if Brian Flores comes as the next head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Joey Porter Jr. is perfect for that MEG cornerback because he's one of the best man-to-man corners in football, okay? So I think that this system, it really fits the Pittsburgh Steelers, not just the Pitt Panthers, and I think that this defense on this base that Brian Flores has built in Minnesota, inspired by Pat Narduzzi, could be what's the key to unlocking this Steelers defense and make it the next great Steelers defense of this generation. But then, of course, after his time in Pittsburgh and learning this style of defense, he then takes it to Minnesota, where he becomes the next Vikings defensive coordinator under head coach Kevin O'Connell. And what Flores did is that he combined Narduzzi's zone match pressures and kind of made that the base of his defense, especially on early downs. And then he combined it with his patented cover zero package that he formulated in New England and then in Miami, which pretty much is unstoppable, man. So you can take a look at what he's known for here. He walks up 7 to 8 people at the line of scrimmage all across the formation, and the offense has no idea who's coming, who's dropping into coverage, whatever. And if they send everybody, no matter what, the offense doesn't have enough blockers to guard up, and there's going to be at least one person getting free to the quarterback, okay? And then the way that Flores plays cover zeros, he lines everybody up horizontally across the line of scrimmage, and then he has his cornerbacks, his DBs, playing off coverage, okay? And then what he'll do is that he'll have some interior players drop out into the zones in the middle of the field. So if any of these outside receivers run a quick slant or anything like that, there's going to be a body in there that's playing a zone right there, and they're not going to be able to throw it all that quickly. If they run like a quick out route, they've got guys out there to just rally and tackle. This is a really good coverage, especially on like second and long, third and long, pass-heavy situations, because it forces the quarterback to get the ball out quick, but all of these DBs have leverage on their wide receivers, and you can't throw it quickly. Then you can also drop out of it, right? You look at this look here. They're playing a Tampa 2 from this same look. You guys can see all the DBs playing back. You've got everybody walked up to the line of scrimmage. They call it their Bengal front, and then they drop out of it as a change-up so that the quarterback, is going to be ultimately confused. So not only does he have to worry about these 5-man quarters and palms pressure looks, but you also have to worry about this cover zero package, and you have to worry about the wrinkles they put into this cover zero package. I mean, just imagine being a quarterback going up against this defense. You can see why Flores' defense has been one of the most effective in the National Football League for many years now since he went to Minnesota. And that doesn't even count the pre-snap disguises that Brian Flores, and especially his pass game coordinator there in Minnesota, Durante Jones, implement into this defense. So not only do you have to worry about, the 5-man quarters and palms pressure looks, not only do you have to worry about the cover zero looks, but you also have to worry about, people changing where they are pre-snap and then rotating after the snap. Let's just take a look at one play here, guys. This is one play versus the Cincinnati Bengals this season. Okay, you guys can see that it looks like, that cover zero look, right? You got all your corners playing back. You got everybody lined up at the line of scrimmage. But then all of a sudden, oh my goodness, Josh Metellus is walking into the middle of the field and they're dropping another safety. This is looking more like cover one now. All right, so now the quarterback's thinking, all right, this is a different coverage. This is cover one. But then just a few seconds later, you have another person drop back there, and now it looks like it's going to be a Tampa 2 zone where you've got Metellus in the middle. You got two deep defenders. We can move to the next photo here, Coop. And you guys can see here that when the ball is snapped, this looks like it's going to be that drop Tampa 2 look that I just showed you, okay? But no, then they rotate again post-snap into two-man, all right? So this is 4 different rotations, 3 of them before and then 1 after the snap. I mean, it's no wonder why these quarterbacks cannot figure out this defense, because it is completely built on deception. It is built on aggression. It's built on getting after the quarterback, number 1, quickly to make him, get the ball out, and then also, number 2, create confusion both pre and post snap for opposing quarterbacks. This is an absolute nightmare for quarterbacks to go up against, guys. And there's a reason why this defense has been one of the best in football over the last several years. Now, you guys can take a look at the Flores era in Minnesota. Now, we have Flores' photo in 2022, but that was actually when they had Ed Donatel. And I just wanted to put the 2022 stats in there to show you guys how much this defense has improved, because they went from 28th in points per game under Ed Donatel with the previous defensive coordinator in 2022 and to 14th 1 year after when Brian Flores implemented this system. And you guys can see as the years have gone on, this defense has only gotten better. And, they did take a little bit of a dip this year, but they were still, a bona fide top 10 defense in the National Football League. They dealt with some injuries, but they were still a really high-functioning defense. And then since Flores took over in 2023, guys, this Vikings defense has been, without question, a top 5 defense in the National Football League. They're second over the last 3 years in EPA per play, and they're 5th in success rate. So the numbers speak for themselves when it comes to this defensive structure that Brian Flores has cultivated here in Minnesota. And guys, nobody else in football is running a system like this with the cover zero looks that he runs, with, the Narduzzi stuff and the pre and post snap rotations. Like, it's absolutely nuts. Nobody runs a defense like Brian Flores. And because of that, man, I think he's a top 3 defensive mind in all of football. There's not a defensive system like this anywhere else in either professional or collegiate football. And, I think that Flores just creates this chaotic style of defense that's both aggressive, but it's also extremely smart. It doesn't allow a ton of deep completions down the field unless there's a bust in coverage. And I just think that this is the future of NFL defense, guys. And Brian Flores is right at the front of it. And in my opinion, guys, if the Steelers end up hiring Brian Flores as their next head coach, and he is slated to get an interview, by the way, I think he'd usher in the next era of Blitzburg football. And I think that this Steelers defense that we are all accustomed to being top 5 in the league, absolutely dominant, people fearing us on the defensive side of the ball, I think we can get back to that with Brian Flores here in Pittsburgh, especially with all the defensive talent that currently exists here in Pittsburgh. I would argue Pittsburgh's defense has more talent on it, pure talent, than the Minnesota Vikings do, but Flores, through scheme and through aggression, has been able to turn that into a top 5 defense in the game, even though they're not as talented or getting paid as much as the Steelers defense is currently. But you might be saying at home, but Jack, he burned a lot of bridges in Miami. Tua called him a terrible person. Can he really develop a young quarterback? I understand all of those concerns, because I think Flores would tell you, yeah, he made some mistakes in Miami, particularly with the way he treated coaches and players. And he did burn a lot of bridges in his time there in Miami. But Flores, something you have to realize is that he spent the first 15 seasons of his coaching career working under Bill Belichick in New England, who was known for being one of the biggest assholes as a head coach in NFL history to his players and to his coaches. He was an absolute tyrant there in New England, and because they were winning, he was able to get away with it and all that different stuff. But that's what Flores was brought up with. Like, he cut his teeth in New England, where all he knew was brutal dictatorship at the top. So he thought he had to be that in Miami. But now he's coached under Mike Tomlin and Kevin O'Connell, two very player-friendly coaches over the last 4 seasons. And I think that he would tell you that he's grown as a person. He's kind of learned that you don't have to be a tyrant. You don't have to always, be that dictator type to run an effective NFL organization. I think that he's turned into more of a player-style coach in Minnesota, and I think in a second stint as head coach in the National Football League, he would do a lot better in terms of the way he treats players and coaches if he gets another opportunity. Also, he has some very nice OC connections. I mean, he can just pluck his favorite guy out of the Kevin O'Connell litter there in Minnesota, and he can also go back to his New England days as well if he wants to. Like, the top 4, in my opinion: Grant Udinski used to be the offensive assistant there for Kevin O'Connell. He's now the OC in Jacksonville. He's got that connection there, but also Wes Phillips and Josh McCown currently working in Minnesota. Those two guys would be, pretty decent offensive coordinator hires as well. And then also he's got that connection to Brian Dable, who worked in New England with Flores back in the day. And, it kind of depends on what style of offense you want. If you want to run more spread, you can go with Dable. If you want to run more McVay style, you can go with Udinski, Phillips, or McCown. There's different options available there if you want to go with Brian Flores as your head coach in terms of the offensive options he could bring in. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. What grade would you give the hiring of Brian Flores as the next head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers? Give me an A, B, C, D, or F. For me, I would give it an A+. How about that? I don't know if I can do that. How about an A+? I think it would be absolutely fantastic. Now, that's not to say that I wouldn't be happy with a Chris Shula. Doesn't mean I wouldn't be happy with like a Jeff Hafley. Doesn't mean I wouldn't be happy with a Nate Scheelhaas. Like, there's a lot of good options that the Pittsburgh Steelers are interviewing right now, guys. But in my opinion, if we want to get back to playing dominant Pittsburgh Steeler football where opposing offenses fear our defense, I think you bring in Flores chaos and you let that chaos reign here in the Steel City. All right, that'll be it for tonight's show, guys. I really do appreciate all of your guys' support. If you guys want more in-depth Steelers videos like today's show every single day for free, click that subscribe button, and I really greatly appreciate your support. And until next time, here we go, Steelers.